Hello everyone. So today's book video review is going to be about Haiti in Mosul. Haiti in Mosul by Lynne O'Donnell. I actually bought this book quite some time ago. In fact, I think about a few years ago, and I've had difficulties to actually complete reading this book because the internal layout of the book is not something very attractive, because if you look at the font, the font is like probably really very small, and you've got to like flip right to the end of the book to read it. So it's not really very comfortable reading the book. And so yeah, I've started reading this book, and then I just kept it at the corner, and recently I just decided to complete reading this book. So with that, we will start the book video review as usual with the review on internal layout of the book. So as I mentioned earlier, it's a little bit hard to actually read this book because it's not really comfortable for you to hold, and for you to flip the pages right till the end of the book. And then the font is also small. So for internal layout, I would give it 5/10. And then moving on to the plot development, even plot development, I find it troublesome to actually keep up with this book, or probably the story, because the author Lynne O'Donnell is actually a reporter. So she's a journalist, and she wrote this book from the point of view, she wrote this book to convey the message from two of her friends that she met in Iraq. So when she was trying to cover stories in Iraq, she met two English women by the name of Margaret and also Pauline. So Margaret and Pauline, I believe, these are not the real names of the women. She has altered the names here and there, especially Pauline and her family's names, relatives' name, and everybody else's, name in the family, or pertaining to the family, people pertaining to the family, had been changed in order to respect their privacy. So with that, what happens is that since she is actually a journalist, the way she wrote this book is a bit dry. It's a bit dry here and there. It almost felt like you're reading parts of newspapers every now and then, and the story also jumps very abruptly from Pauline's story to Margaret's story. So it was a little bit hard to catch up, and then in between you have parts where it looks like Pauline's or probably Margaret's diaries. So it's like you have dates, and then you have Margaret and also Pauline telling us how they feel, like on a daily basis, what's going on and stuff like that. So it makes you really question like what's going on and what's going on between the pages. So plot development, I would say 7 for that reason. And then coming to key takeaway message. Now this is a book that I would highly recommend if you would want to understand what happened in Iraq back in the 70s, because Margaret and Pauline, they are two English women who became friends in Iraq, and how these two women came to Iraq is actually by the marriage, by their respective marriages to Iraqi men who were students in Britain at one point of time. So they met in the UK, they fell in love, and then they got married. They came to Iraq, and then and and everything started in Iraq. I mean, their family life started in Iraq, and they also get to witness wars after wars in Iraq. So since any kind of foreigners, like, you know, those who are not Iraqi, they are not really welcomed in Iraq, especially during the time where they had, like, you know, wars and stuff like that. So Pauline and Margaret, they don't have anybody else to, like, seek support from, and they became very good friends. And Haiti in Mosul, the Haiti in Mosul, the book is entitled Haiti in Mosul because these two women, they get together for Haiti every evening. So that is why, you know, that is when they get to meet each other and, you know, share their stories with. So it actually gives a perspective to the readers about the lives of English women, probably foreigners in Iraq, and what was going on in Iraq from the 1970s to early 2000s. So in a span of 30 years, it's all about wars and, you know, people hating each other, the Sunni Muslim hating the Shia Muslim, and then, you know, you have these Kurds, Iraqis showing, you know, they are not really liking the Kurds, and then you have in general people from the West, like, you know, the countries like UK and US in particular, not liking the Middle East, you know. And how Mosul, although people from the Mosul, they had nothing to do actually with the Taliban's, right? And even Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with Taliban, but since Mosul was used as the base camp, the base operation place for the Taliban's back then, you know, things actually went really, really ugly for Iraqis. And then that's where you get to see people dying every day. So from this book, it was reported that nearly 90,000 people actually died during that period of time in wars, and people were kidnapped, you know, killed, and all that horrible things that happened. And how eventually Margaret and Pauline, they left Iraq, they left Mosul because they felt like there's just no future in Mosul. They left to, Margaret actually left to a place near Mosul, not so far away from Mosul, because her husband is actually a part of the Kurd community. So she went there as it was, you know, safer than being in Mosul. And Margaret, she managed to bring her husband to emigrate to the UK. So the entire family actually moved to the UK. However, you know, these two women, they are continuously worried about the family back in Iraq. Like Pauline had a daughter whom she left in Mosul because she was married to a man in Mosul, and she, at that point of time, her daughter was already having two little sons, right? So her daughter was not able to move with her. So it's all about very traumatic events, and it's very emotional and, you know, heartbreaking to actually read what the Iraqis go through on a daily life, in their daily life. So pretty much tells you, you know, how people feel when they are in a war-torn land. So for that, I think I would give 8 or 10 for the key takeaway message. So with that, we have 20 points altogether. So this book actually scored about 6.7 out of 10 overall. So that's the score I'm giving for this book. So I hope to see you in the next book video review. So do let me know if you've actually read this